Alright, Dream Teams, this week we are just recapping what it is to be a decimal. So first things first, in your books, can you write down our learning intention today, which is this one up here. We are learning to recap what a decimal number is and the place value associated with decimal numbers. That is our learning intention today. With regard to writing that, of course, pause the video at any point just to catch up with what I'm asking, but I'm not going to pause. That's up to you and your responsibility to do so. Okay. For a lot of you, there are some other learnings that I'd like you to do, but for the basic this week, we're just going to get recapping with decimals. So let's have a look at this definition. A decimal number is a number whose whole part and fractional part is separated by a decimal point. Now that looks like a lot of different words to write down, but I'd like you to write it because I'll explain what it means. So let's have a look at, for example, 2.5. All right, a decimal number, as it says, is a number whose whole part and fractional part is separated by a decimal point. So we know that this is the decimal point, and in this number here, the whole part is 2. There we go. And we've also got a fractional part. And the fractional part just there is half of a whole. So therefore, 2.5, is a whole number, and its fractional number with a decimal point in the middle. So 2.5, written like that, doesn't have a decimal point, but when it's written as a decimal number, it'll have a decimal point separating its whole and its half or fractional part. I've now taken away all the wholes, so therefore we now have 0 wholes and a decimal point separating the whole numbers from its fractional part, and we've still left with a half. So that one is 0.5, half a square. It is still less than 1, so therefore it goes after the decimal point. Now I'm hoping that you know all about the place value of the numbers after the decimal point, and it carries on just as it carries on this way into the ones, the tens, the thousands, the millions, the billions. It can actually go the other way as well, into the tenths, the hundredths, and so on. Take this number for example. You've got 18 wholes, and then after the decimal point, you've got 4 tenths, 2 hundredths, and 6 thousandths. So we're just going to recap exactly what those columns are all about. So that 4 is in what we call the tenths column, and again, it's written as 1/10 like that as a fraction, or 0.1 if there is 1/10. And we need 10 of these tenths to make a whole. So 10 over 10, 10 tenths, is the same as saying 1 whole. And I'll put a 0 there because there's no fractional part of this number. There's 10 over 10. So in this number, we've got 0.4 tenths. So I'm going to put a 0.4 just to reiterate that. And make sure you remember that this is 0.4. In the tenths column. In the next column there, we have the hundredths. And hundredths column looks a little bit like 1 over 100. Or if you've got 1/100th, it's 0.01. Now you need 100 of these little guys to make a whole number, and that still makes it 1.00. And again, 1 whole and 0 of the fractional part. But in this number here, we've got 2 hundredths. So I'm going to write that as 0.02. So there we have it with our hundredths column. We need 100 of them to make a whole, and 1 over 100 is how we write the hundredths. All right, we're going to keep going, and I'm sure you can guess what's coming next. Yeah, you've guessed it. It's the thousandths column. And thousands, of course, is written like this as a fraction. 1 over 1,000, and that equates to 0.001, and that's 1/1000th. We need 1,000 of these little ones to make a whole number, and you can see there that this is 0, 0, and 6 in the thousandth place. All right. technically speaking, if we were writing this as a fractional number, we'd actually have 18 wholes, so that's a big number, and over 1,000, we would have 426 thousandths. Now, you obviously got 4/10ths there, you've got 200ths and 6,000ths, but the reason I've written it like that is because the smallest number is the thousandth, so therefore it's going to be over 1,000, all right? There's no point putting it over tens because we've still got to work with the hundredths and the thousandths. So that would be 18 wholes, and then the fractional part would be 426 thousandths. Just a recap of the columns. Your task today is rather simple. You are going to play a game of bingo and submit your results on Google Classroom. So head to Google Classroom in a moment and download the document that's been assigned to you. The document looks a little bit like this. Now, the instruction says, replace the zeros with even numbers. Use the video to see if you get any of them ticked off. So it's a game of bingo, really. And when it says even numbers, you're using 0, 2, 4, 6, and 8. Alrighty, I've done 3 boxes already. Your job is to fill in all 9. And I'm going to give some bingo calls out. And the hope is that some of you are able to call bingo when you completed a column or a row or even a diagonal line. All right, I'm going to not pause, but you should download the document, get it filled in, and then come back to the video when you have filled them in. Alrighty, so you should now have a document that has 9 different numbers, decimal numbers, in these 9 boxes. All right, up next, I'm going to call out specific things, and your job is to tick them off when you get them. First call is a 6 in the tenths column. And I've done that because then I can show you that I've ticked one off. Yes, I can see my 6 is in the tenths column. If you've got a number with a 6 in the tenths column, tick it off. Otherwise, we're going to go to number 2. Number 2, a 0 in the hundredths column. If any of your numbers had a 0 in the hundredths column, give them a tick. I'm only going to do 6 of these, and hopefully you can at least complete a column or a row. Next up, tick off a number if you've got a 4 in the tens column. Good stuff, some of you edging towards that column, row, or I'll pay a diagonal as well. Number 4, I'm sticking with the number 4, but this time, if you've got a number of 4 in the thousandths column, give it a tick. Sticking with the thousandths column, but this time I'm going to ask you to tick off a number with a 2 in the thousandths column. If you don't have a number with a 2 in the thousand columns, don't tick it off. If you have 2 numbers with a 2 in the thousand column, you can only choose 1 to tick off. All right, we've only got 1 left. Final one is an 8 in the ones column. Just like this number here, ones column, it's got an 8. Yes. Alrighty, good work. Tick off all of the numbers. Make sure you're only selecting 1 number per example. So unfortunately, if you've got lots of numbers with a 6 in the tenths column, just be choosing 1. And those are your 6 bingo calls. Would love to see how you've gone. Submit. Make sure you hand in your document to your teacher. I want to see that you've ticked off. And for those people trying to extend themselves, I do have one more thing that you can have a look at, and that's on Google Classroom as well. Have a wonderful decimal time and nice easy lesson to start term 2.